And so anyways, just like with Photoshop, we've got mobile, we've got web, we've got print, film and video, art and illustration. So a bunch of different things, but we're going to set up a standard page. I'm just going to set up a letter size. I'll do it vertically, 8.5 by 11. And remember, you can set up pixels, points, you know, whatever. We're going to do it in inches. And remember that if you're going to do something like a billboard or something really huge, I mean, you can even set it up in yards, right? Feet and inches, yards, all that stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and create it in inches. And I'm going to say create. Now, again, just like and that's a good thing. Every Adobe program has things that are similar. Some things are different. But anyways, if we say window, workspace, we've got our essentials, we've got typography. This is what it's going to look like at essentials. And we'll stick with essentials for right now. So you've got the tools, and a lot of the tools are very similar. We've got tools that are called like the selection tool and the direct selection tool. So this is what I want to show you. So we've got a rectangle. I'm going to draw a shape. One of the biggest differences in Illustrator is versus, say, Photoshop. When you go to paint or you go to create a shape or something like that, in Illustrator, it creates a shape that is comprised of a stroke or an outline and the fill. And in this case, in the toolbar, it tells you what your fill is and what your outline is or stroke. So here we've got a box that I've drawn, and if I select it with the direct selection tool, it's got a white fill and a black stroke. Okay. Now, just like in Photoshop, I can go to my window, swatches, and I can have some colors. So I'm going to kind of try to keep all this kind of centered so you can see. And if I've got my stroke selected, that's the stroke. Remember in Photoshop, we had foreground and background. In Illustrator, we have fill and stroke. So if I want to change the color of my stroke, I just select it, and then I can make it whatever. And it's hard to tell, so I'm going to bring this over here. And I've got my properties palette, and I can increase the size of my stroke. So I'm making it like, and remember I told you that everything is based on points with stroke and stuff. So now I'm making it 21, 22, 25 point, whatever. So now you can see if I want to change the color of the stroke, I can change it, change it, change it, change it, which is kind of cool. And if I want to change the color of my fill, all I have to do is select the fill and then click on that. And so I can have my fill and my stroke, I can adjust it. They are together though, they're not separate. Some applications will allow you to like draw a box, put a fill and stroke, and then move the fill independently of the stroke. That is not, you know, what we've got here. So the most important thing to understand, so please, if you're not familiar with Illustrator or haven't used it before, are these two tools right here at the top, or if your toolbar looks like this, the first two tools in Illustrator generally are your selection tool, and I'm mousing over and it should say selection tool eventually. Selection tool and your direct selection tool. And I want you to think of it as this. Think of your selection tool as your foot, okay? Your selection tool is your foot, and that means you can move stuff around. You can kick it with your foot, right? You can kick it, move it around. The direct selection tool is your hand, and it enables you to manipulate things with your hand. So, for example, if I click off of this and I click on it with the selection tool, I click back and it's selected, okay? If I click off of it, if I click it with my direct selection tool and I click in here, I can move it. That's cool because with your hand, you could move it with your hand, but I can also click on a corner and I can manipulate it. I can change the shape, okay? I can click on any of these edit nodes with my direct selection tool, and I can change my shape. And I can go back with my selection tool and I can do this. I could even go back and erase parts of this box out or whatever. So that's pretty important. So any shape, and just like before with Photoshop, if there's a triangle at the bottom of a tool, that means there's more tools under it. So here's my ellipse tool or my circular tool or round tool. And I'm going to draw a shape. Now, it is keeping the same attributes, the same settings for the last thing that I drew. So if I grab here and I grab the polygon tool, if I click down, it defaults to a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It defaults to a 6-sided object, or what I like to call a sixagon. So, although I don't think that's what they're actually called in math, I could be wrong. So I don't want to hex myself. So anyways, so there's that. Or with the polygon tool, if I double click the polygon tool and come here and click down and don't drag, I can make a sixagon, I can make a sevenagon, I can make a nineagon, or my favorite, I can make a threeagon, which is, looks like a triangle, but I like to call it a threeagon. So, and I can adjust it. And again, I can come here and not only can I click on this square and change the angle, we can make it acute. What is that in geometry? Acute, ugly, I don't know. We can make it, we can change it, the triangle. But do you guys see that little dot, the little circle within there? You can grab it, and if I grab it with my direct selection tool, you'll see that there's 3 little dots inside the points, right? I can click on that dot and drag, and I can make that corner rounded, okay? Or I can click on one and I can change everything. And that works even over here. So if I click down, I can change all of the corners. Or if I click and kind of like click twice on just one, I can adjust just one corner. And so you can kind of see why Illustrator would be fantastic for creating, you know, vector shapes and clean shapes, because one thing that's really cool is the vector graphics are infinitely scalable. So if I was doing this in Photoshop, if I was making these shapes, which you can do, but I tried to blow them up, it would be limited to the resolution of my document. I could take this oval right here and we could print it out 100 feet tall and it would be just as smooth as this, because Illustrator doesn't see pixels. It sees that this oval is comprised of an arc that goes from this point to this point that has a mathematical value of whatever, whatever. And then it continues here and the value is here. All this is math. So that's what makes it vector. And, you know, so it works pretty cool. Are there any questions about this part so far? So drawing, adjusting the stroke, that kind of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and take these with my selection tool and I can move them off the page. I can scale them. Like if I grab my scale tool, but that's a whole nother thing. I'm not going to get into that right now because there's a couple of, when you have a stroke on your object, it changes. But let's talk about type. So let's just say, for example, I wanted to type in Zoom sheet, right? So I can select my type and I'm going to make it larger. And here it is. It's the character palette right here. So I can adjust the point size. I can make it 72 point. I can change the font. Let's see. Okay. So I've got Zoom sheet right here. And if I want to, at this point, I can change the color, make it whatever, whatever color I want. I can also, by the way, I'll show you later, you can make colors, you can use, I can tell you a specific number of a color to use, but let's just say if I was trying to do kind of an orangey kind of color, I could make that. And just like in Photoshop or just like in other applications, I can adjust the spacing or the kerning between the type. It's right here. I can make it tighter, right? I can make it centered. I can even make it, like let's just say, for example, these 3 dots. Whenever you see 3 dots, that means there's more information and more options under it. So as you can see, it actually says more options. So I could even, like this particular font that I have, it is already Nexa bold, but I can hit this to make it all caps. I can make it caps and small caps. I can, I can do whatever. I can play with it that way. And I can also move it around. I can rotate it. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you can. I could make a certain part of it like higher than the other parts. So if I go back here to the options, so that's pretty cool. But what I want to show you that you cannot do in Photoshop is you can take your type and you can come up to type and you can create outlines. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste this. So that's my original, and this is the one I'm going to manipulate. So I'm going to go type, create outlines. And what that's going to do is when I create outlines, it is going to make it not type anymore. It's going to make it as if I drew these shapes or these letters with like my pen tool or with like shapes. So I'm going to say create outlines. And when I do that, it is no longer type. If I have a misspelling, if I want to change it, I can't. So that's why I made a copy up here in case I did make a mistake. So now that it is not type, I can manipulate. Remember, there's the direct selection tool, right? But there's also, there's the selection tool, and then there's also the direct selection tool. So for example, I'm going to zoom in here. If for some reason I wanted to make the top of this H taller, I can do that. And I can make it line up. Or if I wanted to do this for some reason. Let's just say I wanted it to look like that because I want it to look like a, I don't know, a sushi knife or something. If I wanted to change this and have a rounded corner here, I can. If I wanted to grab this S and I want to change all the corners to rounded corners. Oh wait, I have to ungroup it. Let's see, object, ungroup. So I can make it rounded like that. I can do it here. And I can adjust it. I can play with this type. I can make it look like whatever I want. I can even grab this, and let's just say, for example, I want to make it italicized. Now this font, I know, does not have an italics version. So, but I can grab this. Oop, not the artboard, I'm sorry. Underneath the rotate tool, there is a shear tool. And by holding down my shift key, I can make it italicized. So the point is, with Illustrator, you can do a bunch of stuff. Hey, here's a fun thing to do. Boy, I really don't like that being pointed, but I'm just going to leave it. Let's just say I'm going to go ahead and grab my selection tool. I'm going to group all this together by going Object Group, and I'm going to copy and paste it. So here's my original zoom sheet, and here's or the one I'm going to manipulate. Remember I said you could add a stroke to it. So what if I wanted to have a really thick stroke around my type? And then I want to add this in here like that, right? What if I wanted to make it look slightly off center? Or what if I wanted to have it directly centered? You know, it's all easy. I can do all that. I can align it and make it right there. So there's a lot of different things that we can do in Illustrator that we can't do easily or can't do cleanly and do well in, you know, and keep it at a high resolution. So does that make sense to everybody? Do you have any questions about that? Now, I know that we are working, we're working on our Zoom Sheet logo. And I'm going to stop sharing there.